Welcome back to the Skid Factory. Today we're in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're with Pete at Hughes Performance. We're going to have a look around. Let's go, Pete.
All right. Hi, I'm Pete Nichols with Hughes Performance. We're based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We're an automatic transmission and torque converter manufacturer specializing in drag racing applications, high horsepower street strip cars, and general street rod type applications. We also get into off-road racing, four-wheel drive trucks, towing. We pretty much have a solution for whatever you're looking for when it comes to a domestic-based U.S. application. A lot of crossover internationally as well. We're here with Alan Butler and Woody from the Skid Factory. What do you want to see today, Al?
I want to see some cool shit.
Let's do it. So here we've got one of our CNC lathes. Currently we're machining a run of Turbo 400 billet steel input shafts manufactured out of 300M material. We have our second lathe here. Nothing running right now. This is actually getting tooled up for another input shaft job. We'll have that up and running later today. We have our CNC mill here and another CNC mill over there. Currently on this mill, we are running, looks like we're going to do a run of pistons. This is an OEM cast aluminum piston, and we're starting to do some of our own billet aluminum pistons because supply on these is starting to dry up.
Pete, converters is a big part of your business, not only transmission building, but converters, performance torque converters. We've done a video with one of your bolt togethers, which is the high-end version of it, but there's seas of torque converters out there that you're rebuilding and turning into a performance application. Do you want to take us through the process of how it comes from this rusty thing to a beautiful, usable red converter?
Yeah, let's take a walk and see the process.
So we got pallets of torque converter cores here, Pete. Where do you get them from?
So we source our cores from a variety of core vendors throughout the United States. There's a lot of companies that specialize just in acquiring bulk cores and then reselling them to companies like us. Pretty much everything we build relies on a core that came from an OEM application. And that's true of any company that you're dealing with in the performance transmission industry, apart from a couple of the billet designs that you see out there that are clean sheet. So yeah, this is where life starts for Hughes Performance Torque Converter, is with a dingy old rusty core a lot of times, and from here we take them inside to the teardown area where they get processed for inspection and cleaning.
So these are welded together, unlike the bolt together that we got from you.
Exactly.
So obviously there's a bit of work involved in splitting it open so you can actually look what's inside, clean it out, that sort of thing.
That's exactly right.
And that's done inside here?
That's done inside here. We go through a lot of bits.
Sweet, let's go in and have a look because it's hot out here.
Sounds good. Every converter that runs through Hughes gets cut apart on this lathe. We have a sump and a pump that drains the waste oil out to our used oil tank so that we recover all that and recycle it as per EPA regulation. And this is the initial inspection process phase for all of our converter core processing.
So cut open, have a look, everything looks okay, then clean her up?
Exactly. If it passes initial visual inspection, we move on to the cleaning process. You can see some cores cut apart here. These are about to get processed through our parts washer. This runs just on a chain style conveyor for an initial washing of all the components. Once they come through here, we'll do another visual inspection to see if the clean parts show any wear that we didn't catch when it was all old and oily.
So what are you looking at?
We're looking for anything that's made
like
contact inside the converter at some point.
Sort of
Torn fins,
so
bent fins.
Throwaway?
Yeah, basically. If it's a really rare core, hard to find, sometimes we'll rework the fins to rescue it, but these days most of that stuff is scrap.
Yeah, okay.
And then from here we also have this solvent tank here that we submerge the converters in, and that helps strip all the paint off so that we start with a fresh, clean, raw steel core.
So you can weld them back together eventually.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Cleanliness is next to godliness when it comes to welding.
So stators by the 1,000?
Yep. We have lockup clutches over here that come out of lockup converters. These clutches are out of a GM 298 millimeter core. typical that you'll find in your 4L60, 700R4, that type of deal. Very common core to use.
Cool.
From here, we move out to the machine shop where hubs get replaced, pilots get replaced, splines get replaced, stators get machined for heavier duty stator caps, bearings, so on and so forth. We can take a look at those processes as well.
So you're not repairing them to stick back into a normal transmission, you're turning these converters into high performance application only, aren't you?
That's 100% correct. Okay. Yeah, we started as a small OEM business and then grew into the racing company that we are today. Everything that we produce today is going to be a modified version of a core rather than doing OEM.
So inside a lot of converters, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't handle high performance apps like plastic thrusts,
absolutely,
that sort of thing, and that's got to be all removed.
Absolutely.
So I guess the problem with buying a converter is you can't see inside.
You don't know
buy
what
it,
you're
it's
getting.
welded up, it's painted red. You got to trust, but this is where it all happens. Taking out the weak points, repairing them with heavy duty stuff, and then obviously setting the stall speed and that sort of thing is where it's at.
100%.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a little comical. You actually, in some of the OEM stuff, here's a good example. You'll have a phenolic plastic stator cap, which in an OEM application that's used in a vehicle that's never going to see wide open throttle is fine, but you start introducing the thrust loads associated with a high stall converter, and you can break this cap. So we'll go in, we'll take this cap out, we'll machine for a snap ring groove, we'll put an aluminum cap in, much heavier duty, and allows us to run a bearing instead of relying on these pads
so
as the washer thirst.
Bearing?
Exactly.
Cool. So there's a bit more to it than what you can see on the outside.
Yeah, scarily enough, some converters even came with a plastic stator.
Right.
That was real common in Fords over the years. And plastic stators, they all go right to the bin. All right, so here we are in the machine shop. Once the converter cores roll out of the teardown area, they come through this bank of lathes for machining. We'll go through, we'll replace pump drive hubs like what you see on this impeller assembly here. We'll replace turbine hubs, which you see some turbines in the stack over there. A lot of times you'll have a cast turbine spline. We'll put a forged steel turbine spline, or we'll change the spline count as needed. So this is where all the machine work takes place to make the parts fit. Al here's got basically a stock unmodified impeller here, and here you can see one that's already been through the machining and modification process. You can see in the impeller fins you don't have any welding or reinforcement, whereas on this you have the silicone spot bracing that we do to reinforce the fins and keep them from flexing or tearing. And of course you can see the new hub on this versus the old worn hub on this one. So we check every area and leave no stone unturned when it comes to our converter builds.
So one thing that people may not know about converters is this, even though this might have come out of a V6 with 150 horsepower with a 4-speed auto, you may use that in a Turbo 400 behind a 500 horsepower engine. There's customization involved. It's actually these shell designs that you're after for core. And this one you've obviously changed it so it does fit into a different type of transmission, even though they probably started as a similar base converter.
That's exactly right.
Not even in a performance application. So there's a whole lot of customization. There's a whole lot of voodoo involved, except for these guys because they know how it works. We're not going to go into it, but if you like to get into that sort of voodoo, Pete's got a great video series called Torque Converters 101 on the Hughes channel. Blows my mind just watching it. He's the man. Go and have a look if you want to know the ins and outs of converters in a bit more detail.
And click on that subscribe button.
That too.
So here we are in the converter assembly area. We've walked you through teardown, we've walked you through machining. This is where they come to actually become a finished product. As you can see here, we have a disassembled converter that's getting ready to become one of our 245 millimeter high stall builds. You can see the forged steel turbine hub that we've heliarced in place. You can see the copper furnace brazing, which seals the core internally and increases fin strength. You can see all of the silicone spot brazing that we do here in the turbine. We also do it in the impeller that Alan's holding there. These are real high stress areas, so we want to make sure that we don't fold those fins over or tear them. You can see the custom machine stator.
What about this fancy bit?
So So that's one of our billet steel covers. We used to do a lot of fabricated covers on this converter family and did all that in-house. We've actually gotten to the point where we can produce this billet cover cheaper than we can fabricate a cover out of core components. You end up with a higher quality converter. You get more value for your money, and because we actually were able to save money in production, we didn't just gouge the customer with higher prices, we actually dropped the prices on this family of converters as well to pass the savings on to the customers.
Awesome. All right, so this gets assembled together. That's obviously...
Yep, this is a cartridge that actually eliminates the sprag inside the stator. Yep. So your turbine would just drop and place the cover. Your stator would drop into the turbine, and your impeller goes over. You can see the lip there where it gets finish welded.
So then we have to go and weld it.
We'll move over to the welding area and show you that operation. This is where the converter comes for final processing. You can see we got a cart of Mopar converters here that we're running through. And once all the clearancing's done, all the machining's done, everything's set to spec, we'll go ahead and we'll run them through the spot welder over here. We'll put 4 tack welds on. We'll check the converter for run out. If it passes run out test, we move on to finish welding in the lathe welder over here. Once finish welding is completed on the lathe, we'll pressure test every converter. We have a big bucket of water here. We run 120 psi of shop air into every converter and submerge it underwater. Real easy way to pressure test them for leaks. So if anything bubbles, comes right out and goes right back to the builder for repairs. And it's really a fairly bulletproof method. We very rarely ever have a converter leak, fortunately.
So where's the potential spots for leaks through that brazing and
anywhere that you're doing welding. So when we're welding in a new pump hub, you can always get a pinhole in that area and get a leak.
Yep.
When we're welding in a new pilot, which is the spigot that goes in the end of the crankshaft, we can get a leak through that weld.
Yep.
Or the final weld around the OD of the converter. It's possible to get a pinhole there.
So we can see that there's a big group of the same type of converter.
Right.
So with this, I guess with this volume, and because there's so many variations in converters, you're doing a batch of a certain type at once, so there's no confusion about parts and that sort of thing?
Exactly right, yeah. So Mopar, Ford, and GM all use different hub dimensions and different spigot dimensions. So we have to reconfigure the welder setup for each family of converter.
Yeah.
So we'll run through a production one of one particular converter family just to maintain efficiency in our workflow.
Okay.
And right now we're pumping out about 200 converters a week.
Wow, it's a lot of converters.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Once they pass pressure test, they come over here. We'll put them on this lathe where they'll get final polishing on the pump hub to make sure that any little bits of welding debris that scattered on the hub get removed. And from there they go on our converter balancing machine. It's just a standard dynamic balancer. Imagine a tire and wheel balancer flipped on its side. That's kind of what you have going on here. And we have another welder there. We'll actually tack weld sheet metal weights on the OD of the converter if we need to affect the balance of the converter. Okay. And then you can see all our test splines there. We'll test fit splines to the stator and to the turbine on every converter to make sure, if anything's got a burr in it, we catch it before it goes in the box and goes out to the customer.
Awesome.
After that, paint and boxing, pretty standard. We're known as a red and black company. That's our color scheme. All our converters are red, our transmission cases are black, and it's just how we roll.
Awesome. So we're right back where we started. A bunch of red converters ready to get boxed up. Big thanks to Pete for showing us around. Hughes does converters. They also do full transmission packages from 500 to 5,000 horsepower, if that's what you're into. Also a range of other transmission related parts. There's a shop front out the front, but obviously this is just a manufacturing facility based mostly. So where can we buy this stuff from, Pete?
So we have a whole distribution network throughout the United States. You can order our parts through Summit Racing. Jags is another big supplier of our products. If you're in Europe, Hansen Racing out of Sweden is our authorized warehouse distributor. If you're in the Middle East, we have Entreco Racing. If you're in Australia, hit up the boys at Rocket Industries. They stock a huge amount of our products and can fill your orders right away. And of course, if you're local, swing in. We'll be happy to show you around and sell you a converter or a box.
Excellent. All right, guys, that's enough for today. It's hot in here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.